The Isle of Man may be small, but it plays a key role in the world economy. The island between the UK and Ireland is one of a handful of British dependencies and territories that handle billions of pounds of global business. Critics say they encourage tax evasion and allow individuals and companies to hide assets, and international regulators have been leading a crackdown. There are 22,000 active companies on an island with just 85,000 inhabitants. They include thousands that own expensive London properties, shielding the identity of the true owner. I spoke to Allan Bell, the outgoing Chief Minister of the Isle of Man, to discuss these issues.
Well, the Isle of Man has been very much at the forefront of the international move to combat tax evasion now for at least the last 15 years. We work very closely with the OECD, with the UK government, obviously, with the European Union, and all international bodies. And I think our record now shows that the Isle of Man, as a small jurisdiction, is very much at the forefront of the international drive to stamp out tax evasion and to help facilitate legitimate international business in the process.
And what do you make of the recent ruling by the European Commission about Apple and Ireland's tax affairs?
Well, that's a very interesting ruling, and I think there are a lot of questions raised which still have to be answered about that. I don't know the full backstory about the Irish relationship with Ireland, except with Apple, other than it goes back many, many years. But as far as the Isle of Man is concerned, we've always striven to have a totally transparent tax system. So these so-called sweetheart deals, which it's described as, cannot take place in the Isle of Man. Our tax structure is set in such a way as what you see is what you get, and there are no deals done behind closed doors. Now, I think the outcome of the Apple-Irish relationship has a long way to run before we know what the outcome of that might be. But I think it will raise a lot of questions about other companies doing deals with other countries in Europe and further afield.
Mr. Bell, who retires this year, has been in government for 30 years. He's been a key player in turning an island once dependent on tourism and agriculture into an offshore centre. Financial services account for more than a third of GDP, with professional services another fifth. The policy has brought success. The so-called Manx Tiger has enjoyed 32 years of consecutive economic growth, and unemployment is just 1.4%. There is no tax on companies except banks, property developers and big retailers, and no capital gains or inheritance tax, as well as low income taxes. But regulations have tightened in response to international pressure, and global money has flowed to other offshore centres. Some banks have closed their doors. The island has sought to diversify again, encouraging e-gaming, e-commerce and even a space industry. It's under pressure from the rise of centres such as Singapore and Hong Kong, attracting the newly wealthy of Asia. The challenge is to attract fewer brass plate businesses and more with substance, assets and employees on the island. But he also believes tighter legislation will allow the island to win business as companies who fear for their reputations steer clear of more lightly controlled jurisdictions.
Yes, there are obviously challenges for small jurisdictions like the Isle of Man. I do believe a lot of the steps which have been taken, the Panama Papers, Apple perhaps, various others, are going to lead to international corporate activity migrating now to quality destinations which have high quality of oversight, high levels of probity, and fully comply with international standards of transparency and tax information exchange. And we may well find, in fact, over the next few years that some of the smaller jurisdictions will not be able to carry the overall burden of compliance which is required because their administrations just aren't strong enough, and may well, in fact, fall out of the international financial services business, or at least move to a narrower base of activity.
Whatever happens, the Isle of Man will need to be as innovative in the next 30 years as it has been in the last.